One morning, everything was gone. 1,500 acres, 100 years of sweat, sacrifice, and survival. Stolen. Not by thieves in the night, not by war or disaster, but by paperwork. By an HOA, they forged signatures. They twisted the laws, and they sold a black man's legacy as if it were their own. To them, Marcus Carter was finished, buried under red tape, erased from history. But Marcus had something they didn't see coming. A weapon hidden in the very system they used to destroy him. And when he struck back, he didn't just take his land, he legally took theirs. In the Deep South, land means more than property. It means power, survival, and memory. For the Carter family, 1,500 acres represented generations of struggle against a world that never wanted them to succeed. Every field had been paid for twice, once in sweat and again in blood. Marcus Carter was the heir to this legacy. He wasn't a loud man, but he was sharp. He knew the value of land in a county where developers circled like vultures. He kept records, walked the boundaries, and honored the soil his grandfather once plowed by hand. But in his quiet strength, others saw opportunity. The Homeowners Association, created to keep order in a nearby community, had slowly grown into something else. With money and connections, they learned to bend laws, to twist definitions, to claim power they were never meant to have. They targeted Marcus's land, whispering that it was abandoned, hinting that it was underutilized. They weren't interested in crops or heritage. They saw profit, prime real estate that could be flipped for millions, and so behind closed doors, papers were shuffled, clauses rewritten, deeds fabricated. In a single vote, they declared Marcus's inheritance community property. His land was auctioned off in silence. By the time Marcus found out, it was already gone. Or so they thought, because while the HOA believed they had buried him under their mountain of paperwork, Marcus was quietly preparing something they never imagined. Not rage, not chaos, but a plan so devastating it would unravel everything they thought they controlled. Marcus didn't panic. He started with the courthouse. The first file he requested revealed inconsistencies. Signatures that weren't his, dates that didn't line up. Tax records showing payments he himself had made, were ignored in the filings. At first, he thought it was a mistake. But mistake after mistake painted a darker picture. This wasn't negligence. It was deliberate theft cloaked in legal paperwork. The same trick that had stolen land from black families for centuries. The HOA had called his land unclaimed, though his family had farmed it for decades. They had cited zoning laws Marcus had studied and knew by heart. And in those twisted codes, Marcus found something they had overlooked. Buried deep in the HOA bylaws was a single clause. If property was acquired under false pretenses, or if fraud could be proven, the victims had not only the right to reclaim it, but to pursue damages that could be collected from the HOA board members personally. The same people who had stolen from him had unknowingly handed him the very knife he needed. Still, the fight would not be easy. Developers appeared on his land, surveying as though they owned it. Neighbors who once nodded kindly now crossed the street. Whispers spread, "Marcus is losing everything." The HOA board celebrated their victory, confident that their money and influence would crush any resistance. But Marcus was relentless. He built his case piece by piece, tax receipts, family deeds, maps, even testimonies from elders who remembered the land being in Carter's hands since Reconstruction. Every shred of evidence was stacked higher, until it threatened to collapse on those who had orchestrated the theft. The lawsuits began. At first, judges dismissed them, worn down by years of seeing black families lose land through technicalities. But Marcus appealed, again and again. Headlines appeared, "Local black farmer fights HOA land seizure." Reporters started asking questions. The pressure mounted. Depositions forced HOA members to speak under oath. Their arrogance cracked. One admitted to signing documents he had never read. Another confessed that developers promised donations if the land could be freed up. Each revelation spread like wildfire. What had begun as one man's fight for his legacy was turning into something larger. Marcus wasn't just defending himself anymore. He was exposing the machinery of quiet theft that had robbed countless black families across the South. And while the board members laughed in the beginning, by the end, they weren't laughing at all. The courtroom was silent as the final ruling was read. The judge declared Marcus the rightful owner of his 1,500 acres. The HOA's sale was null and void. The forged signatures, the fraudulent filings, the twisted zoning, all exposed, all struck down, but it didn't stop there. Under the very bylaws they had once weaponized, Marcus was awarded damages, millions, enough to bankrupt the HOA, enough to force the sale of the very homes of the board members who had mocked him, underestimated him, and stolen from him. The irony was brutal. The very system once used to erase him had become his weapon. Notices were nailed to their doors. Sheriffs arrived, not for Marcus this time, but for them. The same families who had gloated at his supposed downfall now packed boxes in shame, whispering as their neighbors watched. The community was stunned. A man they thought had been erased had turned the tables completely. The people who stole his land now stood to lose their homes, and as he walked his fields once more, the soil beneath his feet carried a new weight. This was no longer just family land. It was justice made tangible. Proof that even against impossible odds, truth could cut through lies. Marcus didn't stop with victory. He sold the seized HOA homes not to enrich himself, but to build something lasting. He reinvested in his land, creating a farm and cultural center that celebrated his family's history. He launched scholarships for local youth, ensuring that the next generation would understand the value of heritage and the power of resilience. News of his case spread across the country. Lawyers began citing it in battles over stolen property. Families who thought they had no hope found new courage. Marcus's fight became a beacon, a warning to those who thought they could erase history with the stroke of a pen. The former board members, stripped of their wealth and status, became symbols of their own arrogance. They had underestimated a man who carried the strength of generations, and in doing so, they destroyed themselves. As Marcus stood at sunset, gazing over 1,500 acres of fields stretching toward the horizon, he felt something deeper than triumph. He felt vindication. His ancestors' voices were no longer silenced. Their legacy was alive, but the larger question remained. How many other families had lost their land without a chance to fight back? Marcus's victory was not just personal. It was a reminder to us all, land is not just dirt. It is memory, it is survival, and it is worth fighting for. So I ask you, if you knew your family's legacy was on the line, would you fight as hard as Marcus did? Or would you let the system quietly erase you?